Hi, I'm Colin with Seattle Urban Farm Company. In this video, I'm going to be potting up tomatoes and peppers. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more garden tips. Today, we're going to keep it pretty simple. I'm just going to be potting up some of these tomatoes and peppers, which are crops that we call long season crops. And they're called long season crops because they take a long time to grow from seed to maturity. But it has to all happen in one growing season. So you grow them as annual plants, which means they grow from seed, they fruit for you, and then they die within the same season. So that's a lot of action for a plant to go through in 1 year. And if you live in most parts of North America, there's not enough time between frosts to get them to grow from seed to maturity outside. So these plants evolved in tropical climates, so they're used to it being warm all the time. So a seed could drop on the ground, grow, produce tomatoes, and then the plant could die. No big deal because it's not freezing. But here, we're in Seattle, you can't plant tomatoes outside until about May, and you want them to be producing by August so that you have enough of a season before they die in October or November. Therefore, you start them in a nursery, usually 6 to 8 weeks before you can plant them outside. So right now, I'm doing something that's called potting up. So a best practice in the nursery is to start everything in small containers. These are called ponies. They're 4-packs and 6-packs. You can do them in plug trays or whatever container you have. But it's nice because it conserves space. In the nursery, you can grow a lot more early and then pot things up and move things outside because some stuff will be in the nursery longer than other things. But you want to pot them up because if you leave them in the tiny containers for all that 6 to 8 weeks, they'll get stressed out. They'll basically use up all the nutrients in the small amount of soil that they have, and they won't be able to develop a big root system. So you'll be putting plants into your garden that are already stressed, which is not what you want to do. You want to prevent your plants from ever being stressed. So every day for your tomatoes should be a good day. So what I'm going to do, now that these plants are big enough, they're about 3 to 4 inches tall, is I'm going to pot them up from these ponies into 4-inch pots. That's going to give them a lot more soil. I'm going to add more fertilizer to the potting mix, and then they're going to develop bigger root systems, taller stalks. So when I put them into the garden, they can just start growing right away. And they're as advanced as they possibly can be for this growing season, so they'll mature as early as possible. So a few things to know about transplanting. You want to wait until your plants have set at least 1 to 2 sets of what are called true leaves. So if you're growing something from seed, what you'll see is usually it'll come up and have 2 seed leaves that come out. They're called seed leaves or cotyledons. And those leaves are actually built into the seed. So it comes up and it already has a structure there to start photosynthesizing. Eventually those leaves are going to turn yellow and fall off. And that's okay because they already did their job and the plant's now growing and setting up new leaves. So the seed leaves will look a little bit different. You can tell they're narrow, they don't have any lobes, but the true leaves look like what you'd imagine an actual tomato leaf to look like. So for this project, we don't need very many supplies. We need the plants. We need plant tags. I'm using these nice lavender colored plant tags. And I'm going to tag every single plant. So highly recommend this. Tomato plants are hard to distinguish until they start fruiting. Same thing for pepper plants. Anything that's in like one family can be really difficult to tell apart. So if you have more plants than you know you're going to plant, you really want to know what everything is. So when you put it out in the garden, you actually know, okay, here's this type of tomato, here's that type of tomato. You're not just guessing and waiting to see what happens. So I would recommend using tags rather than your memory to keep track of things. So every single plant that goes into a 4-inch pot is going to have its own tag. That tag, fortunately, can just go with it right into the garden, so I don't have to make another tag later. I'm going to use this grease pencil to write on them. Grease pencils are awesome. They're made just for this job of writing on plant tags, so it actually holds up. If you put a Sharpie on one of these, it'll usually wear off. By the end of the season, you can't read it. So if you use a grease pencil, you can actually check back and be like, oh yeah, this is the date I planted it. Oh yeah, this is that variety. I really like it. And you can still check up on that if you forget what you did earlier in the season. The only other thing I need is the potting mix. So I have some potting mix here. I've already added some organic fertilizer to it. these plants are going to require a lot of nutrients as they grow, so it's important to add fertilizer to your potting mix. And then when you're growing in a nursery, it's best to add small doses of liquid fertilizer as they grow, because you really don't want to nutrient stress them out. You can overdo that too, so be really careful. Read the labels on all of your fertilizers and only apply as much as you're supposed to. Otherwise, you can stress them out from over-fertilization rather than under-fertilization. So, my process today, I'm going to write the plant tags first, and then I'm going to fill all of my 4-inch pots up with soil. Then I'm going to move these out. Because a lot of these are seeded so that there's more than one plant per cell, I'm actually going to separate them, and I'll show you that, but I'll get one plant in each pot. You don't want to put more than one plant into each of these. So you're going to actually separate or clip back plants that you don't need. So let's get started. So I've got my flat and my 4-inch pots. A standard nursery flat's going to hold 18 4-inch pots. 18 might be more tomatoes than you're going to put in your garden. If so, you can make a mixed flat, so you can do some 4-inch pots in tomatoes, some in peppers, some in eggplants, some in tomatillos, any long season crop that you're potting up in your nursery. This tray I'm going to fill with all tomatoes. We'll need at least 18 tomatoes for our garden. So there you have it. I'm just going to fill these up most of the way with my potting mix. I've already added fertilizer to this mix. I'm ready to plant. Okay, so now I'm going to start actually putting plants into these pots. I'm going to put my tags in first, so I know what I'm doing. This little cluster has Tasmanian chocolate tomatoes. You can see there are 3 plants. 2 pretty good sized ones, one that's like a little dinky one. I have more tomatoes than I need, so I'm not going to plant this small one. But if I wanted to, I could. This would be totally fine. Tomatoes transplant really well. But I'm basically just going to gently separate these. You can see they both have root systems. They're nice and moist. And then I can plant them into the pot. So this is a tomato plant. You can see these lower leaves are the cotyledons, or the seed leaves. They have a different shape. And if you left your tomato like this and planted it, eventually these would turn yellow and fall off. But I'm actually going to pick them off because I'm going to plant my tomato all the way up to here. A tomato plant, the stem will actually root out. So any part of the stem that's in contact with the soil will send out roots. And that means if I plant it a little bit deep, this whole section will root out and I'll have a bigger root system more quickly, and I'll have a healthier, bigger tomato to put out in my garden. So I'm just going to make a little room in this pot, push it down in there, and then top off my 4-inch pot, and then water it in and it's ready to go. Okay, so I made a mess as usual. I've got one flat done, 18 tomato plants. They each have an individual tag. I'm going to water these in and then put them back in the nursery. Then I'm going to move on to these peppers. Peppers essentially will be the exact same process, except I won't bury them quite as deep. I'm just going to bury these right up to their seed leaves. So I'll separate these peppers, put each one in an individual 4-inch pot, and pot them up exactly like I did the tomatoes, except for a little less deep. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.